We were on the ferry from Isla Mujeres back to Cancun, Quintana Roo, the late afternoon sky still bright and golden over the Caribbean. Then the horizon turned black, the wind screamed, and the sea rose up like it wanted revenge. The little ferry listed hard, metal tore, people screamed, and the next thing I knew I was underwater, fighting for the surface. When I finally crawled onto sand, choking and half-blind from salt, I was on a deserted stretch of coast just north of the tiny fishing village of El Cuyo, on the northern edge of the Yucatan Peninsula. Palm trees bent in the dying wind like they were bowing to what the storm had done. My name is Evan Cross. I'm 33, an architect from Seattle. I'd come to Mexico alone because my marriage had collapsed, my firm was laying people off, and I couldn't stand another grey day in my empty apartment. A week of sun and cheap cervezas was supposed to fix me. Instead, the Gulf of Mexico tried to kill me, and somehow spat me back out alive. That first night I built a fire with driftwood and the lighter I'd miraculously kept in my pocket. My hands shook so badly it took forever. When the flames finally caught, I saw a figure staggering down the beach. Please help. She was maybe 28, soaked, bleeding from a long gash on her forearm. Her lips were blue from cold even though the air was still warm. I'm Mia, she whispered as I half-carried her to the fire. I gave her my jacket, the only thing I still owned that was dry, and tried to clean her wound with the one bottle of water I'd found floating in a cooler. She was a marine biologist from San Diego, doing fieldwork on the coral reefs of Contoy. She'd been on the same ferry. We were probably the only two who made it. Days turned into weeks. We walked the empty coastline every morning looking for anything the sea had given back, a cracked cooler with a few warm beers, a first aid kit, a waterproof bag with someone's passport we never opened. The nearest village was miles away, and the storm had knocked out every cell tower between Cancun and Rio Lagos. No one was coming unless someone noticed the ferry never arrived. We built a shelter out of palms and broken fiberglass from washed-up pangas. It leaked. We laughed about it the first time it rained, sitting under a waterfall of palm fronds like two idiots with PhDs who still couldn't keep dry. Mia knew everything about what we could eat. She showed me which coconuts were good, how to crack sea urchins, where the little crabs hid at low tide. I built fish traps out of wire and plastic bottles. Some days we ate. Some days we didn't. She cried the day we found a child's sandal half buried in the sand. I didn't have any words, so I just held her while she stared at the tiny thing like it was proof the world had ended. Time stopped having meaning. We scratched marks on a piece of driftwood. 29, 30, 43. My beard grew. Her hair lightened in the sun until it looked almost red at the ends. I tried building a raft 3 different times. Every time the waves smashed it to splinters. The third time I nearly drowned. She dragged me out, screaming at me through tears that I didn't get to die after everything. Then came the morning we smelled smoke. A lightning strike 2 nights earlier had started a fire in the dry scrub inland. The wind turned it into a monster. By the time we saw the smoke, it was already racing toward us, flames jumping from palmetto to pine. We ran. At the far eastern point of the beach, the land dropped into rocks and surf. Wedged between 2 boulders was an abandoned fisherman's lancha, half sunk but still floating. We didn't think. We just scrambled down the rocks, hands bleeding, smoke burning our lungs. I shoved the boat free and turned to help Mia in. That's when the burning branch hit me across the shoulder and back. I remember falling, the world going sideways, and then her arms around me, dragging me over the gunwale like I weighed nothing. The current pulled us east into the open gulf. Behind us the entire coastline turned orange and black. We drifted all night. I faded in and out. She kept one hand pressed against the worst of my burns and talked to keep me awake, telling me about the first time she saw a whale shark, about her little brother back in California, about anything she could think of. At dawn we washed up on a sand spit off the coast of Holbox, nothing there but seagrass and a million mosquitoes. We lay on the sand too weak to move, her head on my chest, listening to my heart like she was making sure it still worked. Then she said it, so quietly I almost missed it over the waves. I'm just a woman, even. And you're what I want. I couldn't speak. All I could do was thread my fingers through hers. After that, everything was different. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore, it was full. When she laughed at my terrible attempts to spear fish, the sun felt warmer. When I climbed a coconut tree and nearly broke my neck just to bring her the sweetest one at the top, the grin she gave me was worth every scraped shin. We wrote messages on whatever we could find, pieces of plywood, empty bottles, and set them adrift. Most sunk. One might have made it. We didn't care anymore. We had stopped waiting to be saved and started living. 58 days after the ferry sunk, a Mexican Navy helicopter flew low along the coast looking for drug runners. The pilot saw our smoke signal, circled twice, and came back with a rescue team. They airlifted us to Cancun. Reporters called us a miracle. They wanted to know how we survived storms and fire and hunger. They never understood the real story. We survived each other first. We survived loneliness, regret, the versions of ourselves we'd been before the sea broke us open and showed us who we could still become. Years later, Mia and I live in a little house on the water in Puerto Morelos, not far from where we once crawled out of the ocean with nothing. Some nights we sit on the porch and watch storms roll in across the Caribbean. She still reaches for my hand when the thunder starts. The sea tried to kill us. Instead it gave us everything.